you're listening to the SITREP Podcast, your home for everything historical wargaming. Today, we're at the table and we're going to be talking about anything and everything related to wargaming from a historical standpoint. We might not get it right, but we're going to talk about it. Joining us today from merry old England is Gaz, our Bob Ross of painters. And from the east coast of Florida, our historical guru, Big Jim Oriskany. Then up in the Midwest, it's Marty, our projects director, and myself, Bill, talking about everything related to historical modern, or not even modern anymore, just historical wargaming.
Right.
And ready? Get set. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So that was an impromptu intro as we start revamping some of our music and everything with changes in command staff. But we're back. We're going to talk about just about a whole bunch of stuff today. And joining us, as always, is Gaz. Gaz, how you doing today?
I am sweating my proverbial small items off. For some reason, Jim's weather's managed to make it to the UK. I think it might have been squally. I pushed it across. So it's a balmy 93, 94 degrees today. But other than that, and I'm staying hydrated, doing due diligence with my water intake today. But yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. So let's be clear. That's 93 degrees Fahrenheit because you are in the UK. You do use the metric system, so we're making sure it's not 93 degrees Celsius and England isn't bursting into flames, right?
Yeah, I Americanized it for you. I understand you guys, in calculus are not great.
Yeah, so you dumbed it down is what you're politely trying to say.
We're all like military. Calculus was never our strong point. That's why we were in the military.
Right. All right. Joining us over in balmy, sunny, warm Florida is Big Jim Oriskany. Jim, how you doing today?
You convert calculus to Celsius by subtracting 32 and dividing by 5/8. So thanks for that, guys. I appreciate that. No, it's great over here. And I didn't even have to take my boots off to do all that counting. So
right. Nice.
That's right.
Excellent.
No, the weather over here is great. I tell you what, if you want to share our weather, guys, I'll just send the next hurricane over that way. We have 2 more months of hurricane weather left, and then we'll be okay.
Sounds good. I could do with a breeze and some rain right now.
It's a little bit more than a light breeze.
Well, about that, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we don't have those sirens either, so it probably wouldn't be the best thing to do.
All right, up here in the Midwest, we're enjoying a breezy, light breeze, sunny morning as we sit outside in FTX land, and Marty's joining us. Marty, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you very much.
Do you like that on the fly? I just gave you the title, Projects Director.
Sure, I've been working on projects, and I've directed them to be done. I guess that works.
I've been reading a lot of Dirk Pitt novels from Clive Cussler, so, Dirk is the Special Projects Director, so I didn't give you the special title. I haven't earned that yet, so there's that.
As I raise my game, I expect to, be promoted into that position.
I'm sorry, Jim, what was that?
I was just saying he's definitely special, but we don't have to say that yet.
It's true.
Oh, I've known that for over 30 years.
Right.
All right.
I knew.
So this is Bill, and we're talking a whole bunch of stuff. But before we start, we have to get an official announcement off and running. 2 weeks ago, we had a little contest between the Americans and the British.
Yeah.
We played Battlefield Revolution, which is a game created by our one and only Big Jim Oriskany. And Marty, what do we say? God save the Queen.
Well, the rebels, put up a good fight, and the colonists, did the best they could, but in the end,
the British took it.
We're unsuccessful.
Yeah. So we'll be living under the thumb of the British Empire for another year.
So congratulations, Gaz.
Yep.
Who had the
Thank you very much.
Who had the best classic online formation ever in that game. I think you literally had every line unit online.
Yep.
On one line.
And we tried to run it as a hit and run tactic, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun game actually, and it was a really good move at the end that the local rebels pulled by pushing the northern flank coming around and almost took victory from me right at the finish, really. It came down to a single volley of fire against a single unit. So a stunning game. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, Jim. I mean, what was your inspiration for designing that game?
Honestly, okay, so it's just a game that I wanted to play. So, I design a lot of games. I design a lot of games, and the long story short, take your first shot.
Oh!
There you go. I design games that either I really want to play or that my group really wants to play. So this is the thing that kind of determines pretty much any of the games that we design. It's like, okay, what does our crew want to do like right now?
Yeah.
So sometimes that's a bit of a bad thing because it makes it very, very specific. It doesn't have the best shelf life. Like, I doubt we're going to be playing say like the Benghazi Transit game for 7 years like we have with Darkstar. But it's really always the same thing. You get together with the exact people that you want to play. I mean, it's technically just market research, but it's market research with a market of 3 people.
Sure.
You get together with the people that you really want to play with. You say, okay, what things do we want in this game? What things don't we want in this game? In Battlefield Revolution, everything that I see is either like regimental level, or if you're talking about Napoleonics, it goes all the way up to division or corps level, like the really big like Waterloo level games, or like this super small skirmish stuff. And I'm like, the skirmish gaming isn't really my thing, full disclosure. And the really big games, they're still fun, but the problem with the Revolution is you can't usually do them. I mean, okay, yeah, you have brigade level games, corps level games, division level games for Napoleonics. That works great for Leipzig, for Waterloo, for Austerlitz, for Borodino. If you use that scale and you applied it to most American Revolution battles, your entire game would be 2 pieces. A big blue one and a big red one. And okay, that's kind of dumb. So I was just trying to kind of shoot for the middle there. The original idea was to have it be a nice, clean company level game. Companies in those days were like 50 people. And this one is more. It's like 80 to 100. The scale I'm not 100% happy with because it's like this weird, wonky, there's 2 companies per counter kind of a scale. But 1 company per scale would have been nice, but now the games just get too big. Gotcha. So, yeah, we had about 1,200 people on the field on each side in the SITREP Cup game. Yeah, Gaz sort of downloaded the rules, drew his own copy of the map, and like his turn 1 was like, okay, this unit is going to the hex 1312. This unit's going into hex 1314. The whole thing was clocked. So he had put a lot of preparation into that game. I think that gave him a good vision, like going into his first couple turns or whatever. Until, of course, the rebels started screwing things up with rifle shots and Marty's artillery that he had way down on the south wing.
It got stuck down there, but I had to use it.
The problem.
You had Gaz's entire left wing pinned down with those 2 divisions of guns until they redeployed to the center, and only then could he really get going with his whole left wing. But then when you tried to redeploy him, that's when they got pinned down by his artillery, and that's it was like half the game before Gaz could really sort of get moving. But he took all 3 objectives. He took 3 out of the 5 objective hexes, and then. Yeah, he took the whole linear warfare thing really seriously. But, yeah, that was the longest and most cohesive line I've ever seen in Battlefield Revolution so far. And, yeah, I was like, oh, my God, dude, if I was the American player, I would not want to attack that. And there was just no way it was going to happen. Then you guys started flying into the north with that little, runaway battle group. There was one very small problem with the command rating. They outpaced their commanders a little bit. So we detached the colonel up there just to kind of redress that. But then, yeah, once they got going, I was like, they're not going to take that. What was it? It was Brenner's Mill or something. It was Brenner's Crossing, the actual town. I was like, they're not going to take that objective. It's across the stream. It's stone buildings. It's got grenadiers in there or some kind of light infantry. There's no way they're going to. Then I forgot there was an objective X behind that was completely unoccupied with a ford right there. And I was like, oh, that's what they were going for. Because you guys had to take off. I really like the last 2 turns of the game. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I might be able to steal this. So I saw the plan you guys were talking about, what you guys had in your head. At first, I didn't see it. I was like, you guys are You know, I was like, I won't say anything because we're recording, but that trash ain't gonna work. There's no way they're taking that little town. Oh wait, they're going for that one up there on the hill. Oh,
yeah. The thought was if we could make the turn around his northern flank, we could get there.
Yep.
Yeah, there are 2 objective hexes up there, and I thought you were going for the first one, and that was kind of an impossibility.
Oh, no,
I wasn't saying anything, but I forgot there was one behind that. And there was a second. I said, "Oh, they're going for that one." So we fixed the command radius issue, and then we continued with that flanking movement. And it came close. It was they didn't even get destroyed. That Vanguard unit, but I think it was Continental Regulars. They got pinned down like. That game, the hex is like 100 yards. So they got pinned down like less than 100 paces away from the objective hex.
Damn. So close.
On the very last turn of the game. If there was one more turn in that game, they probably could have made it. Well, of course, by then, Gaz had more reinforcements going there. But it came within like 50 or 100 yards.
In sight of the objective.
Yes, within sight. That's 50 to 100 yards on a battlefield that's like a mile by 2 miles. It's a big piece of ground. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I would say honestly, that was all 3 players. That was the first time playing that system. I think that was Marty's first time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marty, with a hex encounter game in general, or
it was, yes. Yeah. So
yeah, I think I
getting my head around the movement was a little tough. Like Gaz, I did some homework when you shared the rules, although Gaz did it old school and actually scribbled all of it down by hand. I cut and pasted it into a document that ended up being 19 pages long, and then printed out the maps, the whole 9 yard. But I didn't have a good feel for what exactly the initial deployment was going to look like, so I wasn't able to really get a solid plan formulated there. But knowing that we were gonna try and do some guerrilla tactics, I was looking for whatever cover we could find, and that's how we ended up deployed along the road in the woods and whatnot, because we felt that would lend to our strengths. Gaz pinned down our artillery early. We got them trapped down on the southern edge of the board, and well, I can't just say, well, sit there, guys.
Right.
So we used them, and turned out they were pretty effective. I probably should have left them down there.
Yeah.
It was probably a mistake to move them, because I could have. My fear is that with Gaz's deployment that he was going to be able to make a full-on charge and get those guys, and I didn't want to lose my artillery. So instead, I moved them up north so I could lose my artillery to hit.
Lateral movement under sight of enemy guns is that's always a risky proposition. But again, it's people just getting used to the scale and the movement rates. So even people who played like big, it's basically level 2 gaming. It's command tactical gaming or whatever. Same as a regular miniatures game, except here a single piece on the table represents more than one person. And that sounds like a little difference, but it really isn't. It's because it's now a unit versus a unit. There's no roll to hit. There's a roll for effect, and a whole bunch of other things. The damage that you inflict is probably 70% psychological as well as physical or collateral or anything like that. I totally lost my train of thought there in that whole aside. It's just getting used to that level of game or whatever. And even people who are used to that level of game, like people who play Panzer Leader or whatever, the movement rates, I could tell we're starting. Yeah. And again, that's just, it's linear warfare. It's guys without radios. It's a colonel who has to yell at a major, who has to yell at a bunch of either captains or lieutenants, who have to yell at a bunch of sergeants. And you've got men that basically have, let's face it, like 3rd grade educations by today's standards. Half of them don't want to be there. Half of them are released from either British jails or they're, militia who, may or may not want to be there or whatever. Untrained militia, I should add. So getting people to move around without radios or unit facing is a problem. Like a unit in Panzer Leader never has a facing. It just goes there and it's a platoon. It's assumed to be like these guys are trained. Like when you say to go to that hex grid, they go to that hex grid and there's no facing because they either herringbone the tanks or the infantry put out flankers, little flanker fire teams or something. It's fine. The guns, even if it's a battery of guns, usually don't set up in a straight Napoleonic line. Whereas in a black powder game, that's exactly what they do. So formation is a thing. Shifting out of one formation to another formation is a thing. Movement rates are incredibly slow. It's very restrictive, and it's kind of by design. But once you get used to it, you can use all those restrictions against your enemy too, because you know how fast he can go. This is sort of what was happening along that north flank. It's pretty slow to move around that north flank, but at the same time, by the time Gaz realized it as a player, to turn around a small reserve force, he didn't really have a reserve force, but to turn around detach a little bit of a force, turn it northwards, move it up a road, put it back in line formation, and then get ready to either cover or reassault that objective hex. That was like what, guys? Like a 3-turn exercise to get through all that, or something?
Where the general was in the south side of Grenadier and line unit, and that's the guys that had been shaken by fire, so they were sort of just off the line. If they'd have been in the line, I had no chance. So I was quite lucky in that sense. And then when I did turn them back, they had to cross open ground first, then woods, then onto a road, and I lost focus at that point. I sent them up the road, which was between the two objectives. What I should have done was carry them going east and then turn north to go up the hill to the objective from behind. And I think we worked out that I'd have just made it into the buildings, which would have been a much greater position defensively. Instead, I made it to the bottom of the slope, and it was only a single round of firing from those two units that managed to shake, luckily, the single US unit that had made it up the hill and gone for the objective. So very close. And I was really focused on my plan of action all the way until that one that sort of broke my concentration and lost my focus and made a snap decision instead of a measured one. Nearly cost me the game.
That's what happens when you force the British to abandon their continental linear plan and do something American style. In other words, just chaos. And we laugh, but a lot of American Revolution battles sort of shook out that way.
Yeah.
And as far as the moving system goes, because obviously we are all either in or former military. We've all done our share of what was probably our least favorite part of that whole experience, the close order drill. So as far as like what Gaz is talking about, sometimes it's faster. Okay, say you're all like out on a field op somewhere. You're all like a field exercise, and you're all in your fighting halls or whatever. Who knows what you're doing? You're semi-deployed, and all of a sudden, the platoon leader comes over, or your first sergeant or whatever. He says, "Okay, we're going to head 100 yards up this." Through this brush, we're going to set up over there. Is it really worth it to form up on the road, get in column, dress lines, shoulder arms, and march all the way up the hill, and then or wherever you're going, then fall out and then redeploy online? If it's a close distance, just go through it in your regular line formation, because it takes a certain amount of time to assume a column formation, then get on the road, haul ass up the road, get to your point, fall off the road, break out of column formation, reassume line, and pivot toward the new way or toward your new direction. So like to change formations is sometimes better if you're going to be like on the road for a little while. Like if you're going to, hump up the road like, half a mile or, 10 miles or who knows what, yes, definitely get on the road, get in the column and, route step up to wherever you're trying to get to. But if you're just moving like 50 feet, 100 feet, or a couple hundred feet, dude, just go.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows where the rally point is. Just get to the next rally point, and it's actually a little bit faster, even though you're using technically the slower movement rate. But because you don't have to change gears, so to speak, it's fine to just power through. So yeah, that might have been some of it. But again, there was some woods in the way, and woods and roads, and the way that all interacts. It's usually better to be in column formation. I don't want to get too into the weeds on it because again, we don't have the map in front of us, but. Yeah, it's pretty much commanders just trying to get used to the movement system and the formation rules and all that stuff. Formation rules aren't usually a thing, definitely in modern warfare, and especially back through like World War II, even into World War I. Not until you get into black powder stuff, American Civil War, and then extending backwards, does formation become a thing and facing. Units are now pointing in a certain direction, and that's a little bit of a additional restriction that I think more modern players have to, sort of take in hand. It is restrictive, but if you don't put it in there, it's not going to feel like a black powder game.
Yeah.
It's going to feel too easy.
That was the hardest thing for me was the linear movement and the formation and the facing and all that, because, I'm used to being able to just run and gun. And I basically had to rethink everything I knew about, warfare to play in that, era. So, that was my biggest stumbling block in the first few turns, was just getting my hands and head wrapped around that whole linear warfare thing. It was difficult for me because I was making movements based upon where I thought they would be instead of where they should have been and how they should have faced. And I know you caught me at that a couple times, Jim, about the facing in that. So, it was tough. For somebody who doesn't play that genre a lot, that is really tough. And that'll be interesting when we get into Napoleonics and the 6 mil stuff that I've got, playing that up and seeing how that plays out. So,
it's probably even more so in Napoleonics.
Yeah.
There's 3 basic, really 2. American Revolution is almost like an extra one. But it's those kind of linear tactics really go into the 2 biggest, I think, areas of black powder gaming, which would be, the American Civil War. By then, the technology is starting to loosen things up a little bit. You've got repeating rifles. You've got, all kinds of stuff. They're still using linear tactics, but the ranges are so much longer by 1860s compared to others that a lot of those linear tactics are already starting to break down a little bit. So by the time you get to the end of the American Civil War, you're looking at like the Siege of Petersburg. You're basically looking at World War I, the prequel, with all kinds of crenulated reverse angle trenches and all this other stuff like that. But linear tactics is still definitely a thing, even in the American Civil War. And of course, like you mentioned, especially Napoleonics.
Yeah.
Because Napoleonics, it's no crazy, backwoods American, sniping or anything like that going on. It's everyone's using these big, colorful lines, lots of battle flags, drums, flutes, templates. It's true like patrician warfare or whatever. As opposed to, either the American Revolution, which is the battles are so much smaller and a lot less formal in a lot of ways. And even on the British side, things started to get a lot less formal.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of the British force over there was like militia or Tories or loyalists, whatever you want to call them. So even they were using a little bit of, especially in the South, like crazy, backwoods kind of tactics. Or the American Civil War, where technology is starting to break things down. You've got better weapons and you've got other things that are really starting to break up linear warfare. Battlefield technologies that most people tend to not really think of on the battlefield, things like the telegraph and the railroad, really start to break things up. But right smack in the middle there, you've got Napoleonics. And definitely, it's a huge thing in that genre.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't tried it, definitely give it a try in some form. I was thinking while you were talking about it is when we did last year in February when I was over in Ireland and we did the rebattle of Rourke's Drift in 28 mil. I don't remember linear formations being that drastic of a impact on the game, but in some ways, I think it was. I'd have to go back and review it, but So I mean,
I don't know if it really would be. Because again, number one, you're talking about what, the 1879. So we're way past. Even the American Civil War. Everyone's got breech loading rifles.
Yeah.
And even more importantly than the battlefield technology in place is the scale of that game.
Yeah.
That's like a 1-to-1, one figure is one man. It's not a unit based game. So there it's going to get a lot more fuzzy. I would say that, I've never tried it personally, but I would say the linear tactics might not be that big of a deal, even a game like Sharp's Practice, which is right smack dab in the middle of that apex of linear warfare I was just talking about. But again, it's just the scale. When you get down to WYSIWYG, things break up in such an extent that an individual man, who knows what he can do? You know, an individual man may not have a facing. He has a neck that turns. He can see. It's mostly a unit-based thing.
Yeah, that's true. So, Gaz, congratulations.
Indeed, sir.
Working on the trophy. Get it printed soon. You'll get the SITREP Cup handed to you. We'll probably do it at the St. Valentine's Massacre Gaming Weekend. We'll make an official awarding ceremony, if you will. So, in honor of that, and for Jim's favorite general of World War II, we salute you.
I will be proud
Thank you very much.
to lead you wonderful guys into battle anytime, anywhere.
There you go.
Great stuff.
You're welcome.
I don't hate Patton. I just think he's way overrated.
He said.
He was a good general. He was even a great general. He just wasn't like they depict him in that movie. Oh, my God. Don't get on that soapbox again. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's what this podcast is for you to get on that soapbox and make us laugh. And
if we didn't get on the soapbox, what would we talk about?
You know, and enlighten us when we think we know things. And
if you're ever really, really bored and you really want to like waste a day or whatever, I think it's on YouTube. It might be somewhere else. It's an old, and this bears to what we're talking about. George C. Scott, obviously after his role in Patton later on, he made a made-for-TV miniseries called Mussolini: The Untold Story. It's like 8 hours or something.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. By the end of that show, Mussolini is a sympathetic character.
Stop it. Yeah, I don't remember. I remember seeing it. I don't remember watching it all the way through. So I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to check it out. So good old George C. Scott.
You know, so take that delta between, you know, the true, how we know Mussolini really was, and look at how he's portrayed in that movie, and apply that same distance back to Patton. Yeah, you kind of get an idea of how much of an impact having a good Hollywood screenwriter and George C. Scott play you. We should all be so lucky. I mean, rest in peace, George C. Scott, but we need to have someone like George C. Scott play us in our biopics so history remembers us all correctly, or not correctly. History remembers us all well, way better than we deserve.
I don't have to worry about that. I don't think anybody's going to remember me in history.
Oh, no, you're immortalized on our high school wall.
Well, that's true. That's true. All the Wabanti Valley Warriors will... pay homage to me once they are allowed to go back to school.
I don't know who you scammed or who you bribed to become the alumni of the year. Bull crap.
That's distinguished alumni.
Oh, excuse me. Distinguished alumni.
I got a plaque and everything on the wall at school. Which was funny because I got it exactly the year after the last teacher that I had at that school retired.
Yeah. The last person who was witness to the truth.
That's what tipped
Marty
it in.
Schaefer.
It was also my oldest daughter's senior year.
So, well, what are you going to do? All right. Moving on from that great disappointment.
Do you mean the game or me being distinguished alumni?
You being distinguished alumni.
Yeah, well, only you are disappointed, sir.
Anyway, moving on. Gas. What do we got on tap for Tuesday?
So this Tuesday, we're going to do some Flames of War, in fact. We're going back to the World War II period.
Okay.
We did the plane the other month. And this time we're going to some German, one of the Hanomag 251s. I'm going to do the driver, the gunner, and the actual vehicle itself. So there'll be a bit of a mix. So we'll get a bit of infantry painting. It's a smaller scale, so I don't have to worry about how long it's going to take me. If they were 28 mil, it'd be a massively long session. But with the infantry being so small, it shouldn't take me too long. And then we're going to go for one of the camo patterns I've used before for the Hanomag itself, using the three colours that were kind of key in the mid-40s.
Okay.
And, the mid-40s, the middle of the war in 43. So we're going to go for one of the sort of the cream, the brown, and the green. We'll be using the exact colours. I'm really weird on this one, guys. So when it comes to exact colours, it kind of frustrates me sometimes when you see people holding it over somebody else, for not being the exact colour scheme. But we all know that once you're in theatre, you use what you can.
Right.
If it's you use what paint you can get a hold of. 3 days after it's come off the shop floor, it's going to be scored, it's going to be scratched. Never mind a few months in of sun bleached, and it's going to start to fade and change. So I'm a big believer in, unless my unit is something that's rolled out the factory, I like to sort of play around and paint individual models so that the colours don't quite match. To show that there's been different lives of each machine.
Well, sure.
I don't know if that's because I work mechanically on stuff and I see it on a daily basis. If I get an aircraft that's just come out of depth maintenance, They've sprayed it. It looks beautiful. If I compare that to the grey one that's next to it that should look black, it's, they're not even comparable from color scheme.
Right.
Right. Well,
the color scheme that you're talking about is, like the sunflower yellow or whatever, and then so that's 42 into 43 by 44. They kind of so you like to say mid-war, and during those time periods, you're talking about mostly North Africa and a little bit in Sicily, but not much or whatever. Spoiler alert: the pattern you're talking about is almost all in Russia. And the reason it's sunflower yellow is because the sunflowers fields that were just endless, that steppe yellow in southern Russia, where the sun is a thing. That color scheme is going to get desaturated in the field awfully fast. Again, because it's under that southern Russian sun, which was nothing to mess with in the summertime. And then in the wintertime, you see photographs of they just basically took a bucket of white paint and just threw it on the vehicle. It's a horrible paint job. But I guess that's my long-winded saying. I totally agree. So I think what causes a lot of people to kind of say what you're talking about, besides general, feigned superiority or whatever, is people tend to look at, old World War II photographs coming out of Germany to see how they paint their German vehicles. Actually, there's three things. I'll get into the third one in just a second. But the first one are the propaganda photos that the Third Reich would put out there. They're nice, they're big, they're glossy, and the vehicles look brand new because they just came off the parade field or whatever. I think too many people look at those. You look at field photos, and you can tell the difference, really quickly. And I dare you to find me two vehicles that look exactly the same paint scheme wise. I've seen some of my favorite paint jobs, like those big Schutzen panels you have on the side of the tanks. Yeah. You'll have 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth one will just be completely unpainted, or will be painted in like that old, a completely different color scheme. Like have the 44, pea soup kind of or P dot, whatever they used to call it. Yeah. Where it's like it got replaced halfway through a campaign or something.
Oh, red primer because it changed the metal.
Yes. Yep. That's an old trick that I've seen. That rust red that you see in a lot of vehicles. And the third thing, so that's the first two, and then the third one is, just people painting this stuff over and over again. I mean, like paintings in books or on websites or in video slides or whatever. Where I have a great book called all the German Panzer divisions in World War II. It's like 20 chapters to the 20 main Panzer divisions, and it's like here's how this regiment looked in 39, here's how it looked in 40, here's how it looked in 41, and by the time you get to the end of 1st Panzer Division, you're on page 50 of the book, and you've got 19 more Panzer divisions to go. Okay. And all the painting there is accurate. It's just brand new. It's like, this is how these vehicles looked like when they were cherry. And I think there's so much of that material out there that's what most painters are going for. It's what I go for. I've actually taken hits on my painting because it's like, oh my God, did that guy just get out of the parade field? Did he just come off formation? Did he just come out of the factory? I'm like, yeah, I like my tanks big, bold, colorful, or whatever. I can't stand slapping a bunch of mud on the tracks afterwards. All my tracks are brand new, black and steel, and I know that's not realistic. That's just how I like to paint them. So I almost have the opposite problem. My markings are brand new. You can see the bright white of the Balkan crosses and all that stuff like that. But the realistic way is what you're talking about, especially in the bigger scales. It should definitely be beat up in non-uniform. Absolutely.
And besides, you had 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old guys in combat driving vehicles they don't own. Yeah. So they are going to do whatever they want with those vehicles. So
think it can knock down that tree?
Because there was boredom at times, and you're going, can we knock that tree down? Can we go through that building? Let's try.
Yeah. Will it go over this car?
So, yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome. So, as a reminder, we are recording this in real time. So, when we say this Tuesday, we're literally meaning this coming Tuesday because this will go out this afternoon after we're done recording this. So, we're looking forward to that. And then this past Tuesday, Chris, our social media guy, has put out a new video on Battlefield. So make sure you guys check that one out. He does basically every other Tuesday. So Gaz does one Tuesday, Chris is doing the other opposite Tuesday. So, and then this past Thursday, I did the general show, and we worked on the board.
That's right.
So it's starting to come together. I got the sculpt mold down on 3 of the 4 fields. The walls are up.
Yep.
So Marty has a bunker here that we're going to use as the barracks.
Guard barracks, yep.
And then you got your vineyards, which look really good. So we will be ready by September.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Yes.
So it's come along. And then next Sunday, we are doing the first run of the transit game. So first play test. So
Yeah. The last bit of rules I was kind of wrestling with there was how to handle vehicles. There's the obvious way, but the obvious way is going to be kind of a pain. So I found a way around that. I just have to literally like put that chart in the table. The pieces are already made for it. I got to make a few more pieces for civilians and roadblocks and stuff like that.
Okay.
I got a week left to get that fixed, and again, it's gonna be literally like pre alpha. It's gonna be the first time dice have hit the table on this game. Expect a lot of I don't want to say problems, but expect a lot of questions. Expect a lot of answers to questions. Changing the tables literally in the middle of the game. It's gonna be like a true play test, which is why we're starting it like this early. Our finish date for that is I think the 5th of September, because we wanted to run that game for real like 1 week before the. I think we said 1 week before the actual miniatures game.
Right.
Yep.
The miniatures game we're aiming for the 12th of September. All right, cool. So like 1 week before that would be the 5th.
Yep.
So I want to have at least a couple of weeks for play testing, fixes, and then play test the fixes. One or 2 rounds of that should be enough.
Yep.
So that by September 5th we have a pretty viable product ready to go.
Yep. So I'm really looking forward to it. So you guys out there listening, make sure you join us. I'm assuming we're live streaming that. So people can help with input and suggestions and everything on our play test.
And if you're interested to see the process, how does the sausage get made?
Yep.
This is a good chance to see it.
There you go. And
it's I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's not going to be a smooth stream.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, oh wait a minute, how does this work again? Oh God. Okay, hold on.
But they're getting to see the creation process. You're getting to see the creation process and the starting, fine-tuning the process and sharpening the edge. I mean, it's that whole process.
Yeah.
So, I think what it does is it really shows people that a good game or a good game or any game for that matter, well, it depends. I mean, I know some Atari games that really suck and they must have been thrown together overnight. But I mean, and a good war game is a long drawn out process. It's not an overnight, hey, I got an idea, let's draw this out and this is the rules and go play. So, to be playable and to be good, there's a lot of ups and downs and, I like that. No, that doesn't work. Scratch that. Hey, let's add this. So.
Yeah. So like, I'm the noob of the group and, I have my small pool of experience with wargaming and, I'm kind of, I look at it as I'm kind of spoiled where I've come in and I use well-known, established rule sets. So I know what those are, I play a lot of modern skirmish games. So Sanguine, Spectre, Contact Front, stuff like that. Okay, so these are all well-developed rule sets and have been well-known. Some of them are multiple versions. Spectre's on version 2, Sanguine's going into version 2. Contact Front keeps pushing stuff out and then adding rules as they add scenarios and change time frames a little bit. But to start from scratch, right? And now it's, I'm not taking the Spectre rule set and just, setting up a scenario for it. Now it's our game. And we have to figure out, how is this going to work? I mean, that's a process.
And on top of that, Jim has the extra pressure. I mean, we all do to some aspect, but because he's creating this game, he has the extra pressure of it has to be conscious of the real world events that it's based on.
Yeah.
And, you have to be respectful to, what happened. You know, you can't just say, well, everybody had, chain guns and just walked down the street and terminated everybody, and stuff like that. You got to make it playable. It got to be fun, but also it has to be respectful to the actual events and, what happened that weekend or those 2 days.
Which is why I was told I don't get a drone.
Yeah.
That's BS.
No drone.
Yeah. That is a bit of a constraint sometimes, but sometimes it can also, if you use it the right way, and again, this is going to sound bad, but it's almost a crutch. It's almost like, you know what? We don't have to invent the wheel totally. This has literally already happened in real life. Let's just try to, have it, happen or whatever. As far as play testing, like historical games go that are trying to recreate a specific historical event, the methodology is once you get your first couple drafts done and you're ready, and you think you're ready to go, okay, take your hands off the game system. You're not trying to steer it with fake dice rolls or anything else like that. Just run the game and make all the exact same decisions that the historical people made. We're going to run this game. I'll probably do this game a couple times, just solitaire, just to see, make sure the turn sequence works. And just always I'll take the exact route that the GRS operators took that day or that night. Don't try any of the other routes. Just take that exact route, have the exact number of militia show up that kind of did, or at least as far as we can tell from the historical record or whatever. Right. And so on and so forth. Pretty much just reenact the battle a couple times. Again, you kind of do that either solitaire or as part of your play testing. And, without fudging any die rolls or whatever, if the game will usually produce the historical result or something close to a historical result, then you've got a good engine. So, yeah, set up the game and just do everything that the actual historical people did. And if you usually wind up at the same place that they did, there's going to be weird games where, the Libyans rolled a bunch of sixes, the GRS guys rolled a bunch of ones or whatever. Mm-hmm. You kind of sort out those outliers. But if most of your, like when you're plotting where a hurricane goes, and they show you that big spaghetti map of all the places it could go, but most of them are kind of in the middle. You can kind of see where most of the shotgun pattern really is. Yeah. And if that kind of is where it was historically, then you've got a good engine. Now you can kind of take the training wheels off and say, okay, what would have happened if they had gone this way or that way? And that's where it becomes, this is going to sound a little grandiose here, but that's where the game almost becomes something like a thought experiment. Where it's like, what if Lee had listened to Longstreet on the second day of Gettysburg? What would have happened if the Marines landed on Tarawa on the original beaches instead of on the other beaches? What would have happened if? What would have happened if? Yep, right. Yeah, and now because you've got, you'll never really know, obviously, and it is just a game at the end. But now that you've sort of proven to yourself that you've got a pretty robust model for simulating how things work in whatever battlefield that you're trying to emulate to a certain degree, when you try different things, you can, I wouldn't take it to court, but, you can be a little confident in your results. Yeah, right. Like an alternate history kind of thing.
Most definitely. And so Gaz is going to be playing the baddies, as we like to refer to them. And we're going to be playing the GRS operators. Yep. And, Gaz, we're going to kick your butt.
Well, I hope so, because otherwise you will have your second game and you'll have built a table for nothing.
You know what, Gaz?
It's never for nothing, Gaz.
You don't scare me.
That's right. You don't scare us.
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts?
I imagine you two will have to play out the main game yourselves, because obviously that'd be much more difficult to do remotely when it comes to actually taking on going after the diplomat.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. So.
Yeah, that brings up a quick point. This whole transit game, we've been talking a lot about it. At the end of the day, it's really just a mini game. And at the end of the day, all it really is fundamentally is a very flowery and over-engineered way of setting up the victory conditions, or actually not even the victory conditions, the start conditions.
Start conditions,
of the main 28 millimeter game you guys are doing up there in Chicago.
Man, I tell you what.
A successful run-through of the transit game should take maybe half an hour. Which is why we're going to do it like 10 times or whatever, to make sure we have a good system going. Yeah. But yeah, it's just going to be, okay, they started off here at the CIA annex. They're trying to get to the ambassador's compound. And how many of them make it?
Yep.
I think historically they all made it.
Yep.
B, what condition they made it in? Are any of them wounded? And most importantly, C, how long it took them.
Yeah.
So that sort of determines in what stage of progress the unrest is at the actual ambassador compound.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we do that, because you're right. That it's total setup for the starting conditions of the miniatures game on the actual, entering the compound. Is the ambassador's residence on fire by the time we get there, like it is in, real life? Is the ambassador lost in the, compound there in the fire and they couldn't get him? And, so all those conditions will be set up, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, because theoretically, if we get to the compound, we're down to 2 guys. That could make things very, very ugly. Yeah. So,
Or, if the 13th February guys aren't doing their thing.
Yeah. So, well, they didn't do much anyway, so, honestly.
Yeah, but if they are not there, if they have decided to go against us, that will affect what the other bad guys do.
Yeah.
It will,
That's definitely a big part of the transit game is the GRS has the ability to influence. Of course, the dice roll will make a big difference. Also, the Libyan insurgent player will be counteracting these efforts, but it will be somewhat within the GRS's power to keep the streets calm and sort of recruit along the way. So, I mean, if the game turns into a runaway victory, not only does the GRS show up there on time with both vehicles and all 6 operators, but they might show up with a friggin' half platoon of, friendly militia at their backs too. I mean, I don't know if that's likely, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Or they might show up there alone, or they might be like one guy left. I mean, we're looking at a range of possible arrival states.
Yep.
Or if Mo, our translator, is injured or killed.
Yeah.
Now you may not be able to communicate effectively with them, and that may be something that slows us down or prevents us from gaining their assistance.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the translator is in the game, and he's pretty much he's in there as a character, so you don't want to get him killed. He is vulnerable, but he's also like a pretty big modifier on how well those people-based skills, people-based roles go as far as the mob on the street.
Yep.
Obviously, without the translator, not to give Gaz any hints here, but without the translator, they're going to have a lot harder time keeping ambivalent militia, basically looters, ambivalent militia, turning them into friendlies, or keeping the ambivalent from descending into hostile. So that the militia is going to be in 3 different states, flexible states. That's what's going to be kind of the weirdest thing about this game is the complete lack of control of the Libyan force. Well, that's going to be a big obstacle that Gans has to overcome. Is he's going to be a commander that's not in command of his troops, because they might desert, they might start looting instead of doing what he tells them to. They may turn into February 13th guys out of nowhere. Who knows what's going to happen. You are a militia commander. Welcome to disorganized warfare. It's going to feel very disorganized.
Right.
I think it's going to be a really good time, and I can't wait. So, yeah. All right. Upcoming projects. Jim, what do you got going on this weekend for gaming?
Oh, man, many things. So, let's see here. What I've got going on this week coming forward is pretty much a continuation of what was going on last week. So there's a few things. Number one, I spent 3 days in a monster Panzer Blitz game with Piotr, where we sat down and we recreated the Battle of Studianski in Poland, central Poland, along the Vistula River in August of 1944. So we didn't broadcast that because it was like 2 7-hour sessions or something like that to kind of get to finish designing the scenario and then to go ahead and play through the game. So yeah, it's a big game. Now what I did is we came back on the 3rd day and we recorded sort of a commander's review where we kind of looked over the battlefield and discussed each turn, what we did, how things worked, what we had in our mind, what we had on our plates. Kind of like the discussion we just had with the Battlefield Revolution game. We did this with Panzer Leader with the Panzer Blitz map sort of laid out in front of us or whatever. So I've got that in the can. I have to edit it and smooth it out, put some jazz on it or whatever. It's probably going to be a 2-parter coming out sometime during the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
Once again, everything gets kind of put through the cam. So that's up there. We have the other thing that we did last week was we rolled out for the first time Letters of Mark, which is our Age of Piracy game.
Yeah.
Or one of a whole bunch of Age of Piracy games I'm sure we're going to be looking at. So Letters of Mark, we did a play test with Jen on Saturday night. We did a full game with Gaz and Rasmus on Sunday afternoon. Both of those games went really, really well. The British did win both of them. So the British are on something of a roll recently. The Pirates can't beat them and the Rebels can't beat them. What else is going on? So I have that stream finally did update in YouTube. So if anyone checked it out on YouTube and it looked a little jagged, I do apologize. It took 3 days for YouTube to finally process that video.
Wow.
It is finally up. Again, this is like a 3.5 hour video. I took that 4-hour game. The original stream was 4 hours. I cooked it down to 41 minutes with a very rough edit. So I might go ahead and paste or upload a highlights of, again, a little bit later in the week. Tomorrow, we are doing another game of Letters of Mark, which is, the same, naval pirate game that we were talking about a second ago. We're going through another live game tomorrow on Sunday. So that's coming out live. We definitely know the rules a lot better now. It's a very light game. It's a very simple game. So it's no huge challenge. It's not Panzer Leader out in the open ocean. It's like, wow, it's really simple.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. It's very light. Again, because this is going out right away, if anybody wants in on that game, reach out to me on YouTube. Throw a comment in this video, and I'll see if I can get you guys hooked up. Of course, it also goes out to the team if anybody wants in on that. All you gotta do is call us on Skype. I can put you in the game.
Nice.
And so that's going out tomorrow. Yeah, it's a busy period. And Op Center episode number 14 is now in the can.
Op Center, it's back. Holy moly!
Op Center, it's like an 80s slasher monster. Just when you think it's dead, it kind of sits back up again and picks up its axe and comes at you one more time.
That needs a special shout out.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yes. Op Center's back. Awesome.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of labor intensive, but that's okay. That's kind of the reason why we kind of stepped back from it for a while. But we're coming back into it. So we've had a full series on Arab-Israeli wars, on the Falklands, and on Vietnam. Those are the first 12 episodes. And then for the 13th episode, we kind of had this weird one where it was just, I wanted to do something for the 75th anniversary of Iwo Jima. Obviously, this would have been back in February. And then again, virus happened and everything else. So it's been a really weird summer, guys. I'm sure everyone, can kind of relate to that. But I am trying to get back into it. And one of the things I did want to do was to, number one, not have a playlist with 13. Call me superstitious if you want. But also, we have 3 complete series. And then we have like this one, half-ass kind of add-on that's kind of like hanging off the side there. So that seemed weird to me. Call me a completionist. We're going to do 3 more episodes. We're going to have them Pacific themed, and then we're going to have a 4-episode series on the Pacific. As far as season 4 or whatever you want to call it.
So
series
we
4
have 7 episodes coming up in the future. Did I count that right?
No, we have at least 3.
Okay, 3.
So we have the first 12 or the first 3.
Yep.
It was usually 4 episodes per season.
Right.
Then we had the 13th one on Iwo Jima.
Okay.
So we're going to make 14, 15, and 16
Gotcha.
to sort of close out what would be an unofficial season 4.
Nice.
Whatever, series 4.
Nice.
And obviously Iwo Jima's in the Pacific, so we're going to do 3 more episodes on the Pacific.
Nice. Very nice.
First one's done and in the can. I'm not sure when it's going to go out. We'll just look for a nice spot in the schedule. And, we also want to put it up on all of our platforms.
Yep.
We have to send it to some other people. And, and then, we just have to do 2 more after that. So, again, these do take a while. This one wound up a total clock time of about 18 hours for what's basically a 15-minute video. But that includes research and writing the script and all that stuff like that. So, when parts 15 and 16 will be coming out, that'll be a little bit down the road, probably sometime in September. But we are going to do it, and we are going to finish Series 4 of the Op Center.
Nice. Sure. Excellent. Definitely looking forward to that.
For Series 5, I don't want to promise this yet, but what I kind of want to do, and this was another thing, what got me back into Op Center, is the 30th anniversary of Gulf War I is coming around the corner.
Yeah.
In fact, we've already passed August 2nd.
Yep.
August 2nd was the 30th anniversary of the initial Kuwait invasion. And I've always wanted to do something on the Gulf War. So with the 30th anniversary coming up for real in January and February, January if you count the air war and also the Marines at El Kafji, and then of course February starts the main ground war. Yeah, I want to have the Pacific stuff done and out of the way before I start to realign towards the Gulf War later on in the year.
I can't believe it's been 30 years.
Yeah, right.
I know, it's pretty. It's enough to make you feel old, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
It is for me, that's for sure.
Yeah. Wow, 30 years.
I remember when the ground war kicked off. I was stationed in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, and we had just come in from the field. We were on the wash rack, and it was on the radio. We had it cranked up over the PA system, and we were listening to the news reports as we recovered our vehicles.
Yep.
Wow, 30 years. Woo. Before long, we're going to be that old group that, there's only so many people left from Gulf War I. How they, every day you lose so many World War II vets and all that stuff. So,
right.
Oh, man, 30 years. All right. Well, it sounds like you got a lot on your plate. Yes?
Oh, yeah.
What do you got coming up?
So I pulled the trigger at the weekend, just gone, to pick up some Blood and Plunder, and I've picked up the English box set to start with.
Okay.
I'm going to use them for the Tuesday night.
Nice.
So pushing towards the pirate theme that we're doing.
Uh-huh.
It's a really nice little box set. There's 4 different unit types in there, and a leader character or a form of captain. So it should give us probably 4 or 5 episodes of pirate stuff. Whether we do them back to back or space them out, well, that was a decision for another day.
Yeah.
But you even get the Forlorn Hope, which are the guys with the pistols and the knives in their teeth. They're doing the swinging across.
The whole swashbuckling thing.
Clear a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then you get your sort of your line militia, your actual the riflemen that would be on board the type of Marines and such. So yeah, there's a nice mix. But as you go through the different nations, the miniatures vary lovely. There's a real clean separation between the Spanish, the French, the English, etc.
Yeah.
So you can definitely see there's certain units that are taken that correspond with each nation. So really nice model range. Looking forward to getting stuck into that. We might be doing some more from the other nations in preparation for February, for the Valentine's Day Massacre. But we'll make that decision on another day. So to start with, we'll get some of the English, of course. It's this side of the pond.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Other than that,
in the 1700s and 1800s, the British are almost like the Germans in World War II. It's like, what front do you want to play on? Well, you have to start off with some Germans. Okay, but we're going to do Italy and Sicily. Well, you need some Germans. Okay, let's do Russia. You need some Germans. You need Germans in France. You need Germans in Scandinavia. You need Germans in North Africa. If you're going to do World War II, unless you're in the Pacific, you're going to need some Germans sooner rather than later. So, yeah, all these wars in the 1700s and 1800s, Napoleonics, American Revolution, piracy, English Civil War, I guess we're now back in the 1600s. Yeah, sooner or later, you're going to need some British, or English, probably sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was an easy buy for me just because it's something that I can put into my own collection and use for gaming as well. So, yeah, it was something I wanted to paint up. They do have quite a variety of color schemes. One thing I've not done much of yet is research, so that's going to be a learning curve for me. Go out and find some. I've already found some related to the sort of the pastel color schemes that are used for different nations based on how they dyed their cloths. So it's just a case of distilling it down into which nation used what and picking the ones that will give very clear visual, so easily recognizable when you've got models on the table. Makes it stand out a little bit, makes it a bit easier.
Nice.
I've done very little research, but the little bit I have done shows that it seems like, at least for some of these nations, I don't know if this is true for all of them, yeah, you can look up like what that nation like what their Marines or their sailors might have looked like or whatever at a given time period. However, especially with like infantry troops, like Spanish infantry, for instance, they seem to have like a different uniform than like their main continental armies or whatever. At least in the Caribbean, almost like a tropical version of the uniform. So yeah.
There's a lot of just thrown together stuff as well, you know, as in just people wearing what they had and no form of uniform with a lot of these crews. So it's really nice. I think it'd be more about finding a color to tie them in, you know, a red bandana, a red
sash,
you know, a sash around the waist, a red stringer off the end of the sword, you know, just so you can pick out, okay, there's a common theme of red through all of them, and then for, say, the Spanish, it could be an orange or a pale yellow or something, just that type of thing. So I think it just helps for gameplay. You know, when you're having to stand there for a few seconds and work out which models are yours and which ones your enemies, it takes some of the immersion out of the game. So having sort of clearly defined color tags for the forces really helps.
Yeah. So, speaking of Blood and Plunder, you know they have a Kickstarter coming up in October. They got a couple announcements. The first one, Jim, you might spark your interest a little bit. They've got a new expansion book coming out called Queen Anne's War. They're moving into the 18th century expansion, new units, factions with a focus on active powers during the first two French and Indian Wars, King William's War and Queen Anne's War. Mixed European and Native American raiding parties, the last of the Buccaneers, and regular army units for all the European factions are just some of the exciting additions you can expect. So that's the expansion book coming out. And then the Kickstarter is going to be called Raise the Black. This is actually going to be a Kickstarter to bring out plastic multi-piece miniatures.
And the previews on that are awesome.
Yeah, so, I mean, there'll be, you know, right now they're metal. But they're going to multi-part plastic miniatures, which is, anybody who's been in the miniature business knows, is extremely expensive to get plastics going. You know, so Gaz, your minis were resin, or were they metal?
The ones I've ordered are metals.
Yeah.
So they're the actual starter box set for the nationality that I chose. I've had a look at the multi-part minis that they've shown as the run-up for the October 6th release. And they're really, really nice. They've got, I think it's, the arms come separate, the head comes separate.
Yeah.
So with even a basic box set, I think they said you can do 60, 70 different individuals as such by chopping and changing the arms, the guns, the pistol, the sword. So between weapons, heads, and arms, you can literally make up a force you probably couldn't even use in the game because it'd be too large for any normal game.
Yeah.
So having that option, multi-part plastics, I really like for that reason.
Yeah.
A lot less work, a lot more individuality amongst all your crew.
Yeah. So another part of this Kickstarter is they're going to have a 2-player starter set. The starter set will be themed around Blackbeard's last battle with the Royal Navy Lieutenant Robert Maynard, Pirates versus the Royal Navy. So they're having a new starter set coming out.
Yeah, and they've already got, for their current edition, a 2-player starter set.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think that's the way to go.
It definitely is the way to go. I mean, you have to get a starter set to get people in. That's why it's nice to see like Spectre Miniatures finally doing a starter set. You know, it's nothing fancy. It's 2 boxes of miniatures and a book. You know, I mean, some starter sets you get, you know, templates and things like that. I mean, it is what it is. At least by having a starter set.
But you got to have
2.
You got. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you gotta. Unfortunately, if you want to get the game rolling, somebody has to bite the bullet and get both forces, and then drag their buddy over and say, "You're playing these guys."
Right. Or take turns playing the different ones, see which one you like. You know, right? So, but if it's just, well, I get a starter army and a book. Who are you playing against?
Yeah. Now I gotta find a guy that's already playing this game and isn't playing the same force that I have because we both have the starter set.
Right, and you got to be excited about the game. I mean, if you don't like the game, you don't like the game. But let me tell you a quick story. So we used to have a local game store near us, And it was a great store. You know, I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want anybody's feelings hurt. But when it opened, when we walked in there the first time, they were, it was bright, it was clean, it looked great. The staff were really friendly. They welcomed you in and say, "Hey, what are you interested in? Have you thought about this?" They took the time to get to know you, and it was great. As a couple years went on, every time a new product came out, so I'm going to use what's the Western steampunk game? Gaz, help me on this.
Wild West Exodus?
Yes, Wild West Exodus. When Wild West Exodus came out, I was all in because, it's Wyatt Earp and all that, and I'm a huge Western person. And so, I'm like, I'll give it a try, and I know Romeo, from the Hex the Bag Company that made the game. Wild West Exodus was made as an offshoot from the guys that make the bags.
What, like Battle Foam?
Yeah, Battle Foam, Romeo. Originally, that company was owned by Romeo and Battle Foam. It was a Kickstarter company they did. So I was like, I know Romeo, so I'm going to give it a shot, right? And then things started going downhill. So we invested a lot of money into the initial 2-player starter set, and to be honest with you, it turned out not to be my thing because it was too steampunky for me. It was really a stretch on the Western end. So for me, the Native American miniatures are incredible. They are top notch. The Wyatt Earp, the Lawmen, there was too much steampunk robotic crap in it for me. All right, but it was still a game. A lot of people, this game store got into playing it. A couple of weeks later, we walked back in. I'm like getting some paint and stuff to finish up some of my miniatures. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to bring my stuff in. We'll play a game with you guys. We broke the game, so we don't play anymore. It's junk. And I'm looking at him going, dude, you just convinced a whole bunch of people to spend a whole bunch of money in your store. And you're coming back and telling people, we broke it. The rules are broken, and we're just not playing it.
Right. What's up with that?
And he used to do this for almost every game. He used to have a War Games Club that used to come in on either Saturday or Sunday and play Battlefront, Flames of War every weekend. He alienated them, by down talking stuff. You don't do that. You don't have that's not a good business model. So even if you don't like a game, don't talk it down. Say, what it is you're concerned about or what you can do. There are people out there that are still going to like the game, right? It does nothing to trash a game. There are a couple of games I can think off the top of my head that I would love to just rip apart. One we can because the company no longer exists, but Gollum Arcana. Ask Dawn about Gollum Arcana. She doesn't use the word hate at all, ever. And she will tell you flat out, I hate this game. It's the dumbest game ever. So,
especially if you're in charge of a gaming store, and probably half of your money comes from people coming in to play your game.
Right.
Yeah, your job is to sell more of them.
Game. Yeah.
Right. Well, let's just say that store no longer exists. So I think by the end, the owner said it was due to the economy, but this was before the coronavirus and all this. This was a couple of years ago when they closed. Yeah. I think he just got burned out. Sometimes you just get burned out, and it's not fun anymore. When you open something like that, it's like, I'm going to have so much fun. We're going to be playing games and doing this and that. And then the business reality sets in. And it's not so much about playing the games as it is trying to survive and, compete in a market. So,
Well, and I ran into him at Polar Vortex, one of our smaller local gaming conventions, at the end of last January. And he's just kind of bitter and has anger management issues.
Yeah. So, again, we're not trying to slam anybody, but what we're trying to say is, be positive. Even in something that may not be your cup of tea, there's got to be a positive aspect. Thinking about Wild West Exodus, even though it wasn't my flavor of a Western genre, the steampunk thing got a little too much for me, there were still parts of it that were really good. The book I thought was really laid out nice. The miniatures are actually top quality. They really were. And this is before War Cradle took over. So, it had a following. It was good. And like I said, the Native American miniatures were top notch. They were just really good. You could use them in other games. I think the scale's a little off. I think it's 32 mil, if I'm not mistaken.
35, I think they are.
Was they 35?
They were slightly overscaled.
Yeah.
Well, considerably overscaled for 28.
And
I think that was because of the time they needed that extra scale to get the detail that you're talking about.
Yeah, and Gaz can attest to it. Creating a game and marketing a game and keeping it alive, it's a lot of work. I mean, it takes all your time and energy. And I'm going to be the first to say Gaz had a product that Dawn and I really liked. And we're taking our friendship with Gaz out of this. This is kind of how we met Gaz. We met Gaz at, what was it, Salute, wasn't it?
Salute.
Yeah.
Salute.
When you were there promoting your game. And
we actually had one miniature that year. We'd got the baseline for the rules and some examples of the stat cards. We had a theory behind the game, Mythos, 3.0 miniatures. There was 5 of us in the team at that point. We'd already been doing it for a year and probably about 14 months at that point, invested a fair few thousand in sculpts and designs ready for the Kickstarter. So, yeah, we went through all that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, and it was a great game, and it's a great product. We still have our starter set, from the Kickstarter, and, we fully supported them as much as we could. You guys had the right pieces in play. I think it just came down to capital and marketing. PR. Just PR is very difficult in the current market with so many strong games as well. Yeah, so, I mean, so word of mouth definitely helps, and so the point is there are so many good games out there, and there are some okay games, and there's a few that are questionable, but everybody's gonna like them. I know people who liked Golem Arcana. They liked it.
There's something for everybody.
There's something for everybody. So it never pays to down talk something like Warhammer 40K. But to be honest with you, I've never truly played a full game of it, so I don't know. Maybe I would like it. I have the Tau starter sets. I have, the 8th edition starter set, because when I was covering UK Games Expo the year that 8th edition was released, I was hanging out with the guys from GW, and they really talked it up and got me excited. I'm like, I'll give it a shot, and it's still sitting in the box right now.
And they're on 9th edition.
And now they're on 9th edition.
I was going to say, 40K would almost be like the exception to that rule, like never talk trash about another person's game or whatever, because most of the true hate that you see for 40K, at least in the forums I go to, are from people who like and play 40K. Yeah. It's like, oh, look what they broke this time or whatever. They're not from outsiders. It sounds like, you and definitely myself, people who don't really play 40K, it's from people within that community. But I will say this, and I do have a sliver of experience with this. If you're in charge of a gaming store, either an owner or you just work there, and you have a big crowd of people that come in every weekend to set up a huge 40K table and play 40K, you don't talk trash about 40K, right? Because those people are buying coffee and soda and snacks and chips, and when people see a big crowd, a new customer comes in your store that's never been there before, and it's dead. There's nobody there. They're going to look at a couple things, non-politely at the cashier, and walk out again. If they go in there and there's a lot of noise coming from the back of the store, and there's people throwing dice and, talking trash, and, there's a big game going on, they're going to, even if 40K isn't their thing either, they're going to be into it. Yeah. Way back in 1990-91, I was one of 5 Marines who, we were like 20 years old at the time. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. Talk about 30-year anniversaries. We rented a tiny little space. I think it used to be like a Vietnamese nail salon or something along Highway 21. And we opened up a tiny little gaming store, and we actually made a go at running our own gaming store. And we didn't know what the hell. We were out of business in like 6 months. Because, again, 5 20-year-olds, we each put in like $2,000, which was,
a lot of
not
money
even a lot of money back in those days. Yeah. And we said, let's give it a shot. And this is like before the internet was really a thing, and people would come in to buy stuff out of our catalogs, and we would just order it and not even take their money until the product came in. And then by then they didn't want the product, and now we're stuck with something we can't sell. And we had baseball cards. But anyway, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. But what kept us alive as long as it was going was the back room. And I don't know if this is true for all gaming stores, but I guarantee you it's true for a lot of them, maybe even most, except for GW specific stores or whatever. It's all about, having people come into your store and having that back gaming room. Yeah. Because that's where, dude, we weren't making anything. We were taking losses, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing, taking losses on actual merchandise. And our store was like the size of most people's living rooms anyway. But in the back, we had this other little room where there was always either a 14-hour, 15, 16 marathon hour game of BattleTech going,
Nice.
or talk about games you don't really like. Vampire the Masquerade had just hit back in those days, back before that whole franchise turned into what it is now. But anyway, we weren't going to talk trash about those games.
Better.
Again, it wasn't really my thing. I'm not really into the whole gothic punk like they used to call it in those days. I got into it later a little bit with Werewolf, but there was always a big crowd of people back there, with little fake plastic fangs. And you know what? They were drinking soda. They were eating chips. And we were sending people off to Walmart, get a whole tray of that Sam's Choice Cola or whatever. You buy it for $0.25, you sell it for 50 cents. And by the end of the month, you walk away with $600 in profits or something. And if you're going to talk trash about their games, you can chase them out of your store, and then what?
Right.
So.
And especially
if people are coming in to play your game, and if they're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, dude, who cares? They're eating your snacks.
Right.
And they're creating buzz, and then, word of mouth. Your store is known locally as a place where people are going to come and spend time or whatever. Even if they're not playing, they're just sitting there hanging out and talking to people.
And those people
there's no one to hang out with.
They drop big money when new release comes out. Dawn used to be huge into Magic, and we would go for pre-release night. It starts at like midnight, and if you were there, you got to do the pre-release, and then you can order your box of cards, right? A whole box. And I mean, it was like $100, $150 a box. And then if you wanted the Masters, I think the new Master set just released. It's $350 for a box of freaking playing cards, really. But people do it, and they drop the money. And I know people. I was sitting there because Magic's not my thing, and Dawn was playing, and I saw these people come in. It was a dad and their two kids, two sons, I think it was. And they came in and they didn't play Magic, but they saw all these people having a great time and stuff. And they're like, "Ooh, I want to do that." And they ended up each buying a box, and they've never played the game. But because they saw everybody having fun and, enjoying things, they got all hyped up and, bought the stuff. So, and I've done that. And when I go to like a Gen Con or, other places,
it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So,
hello again.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello.
Are you there?
Yep.
We are. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. For a while there, it was showing you guys had paused the call.
Oh, no, we're here. I heard everything you said, Jim.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. No worries.
Yeah, because what I was saying, Jim, is that, what you're talking about in America especially, we focus more on playing at game stores than we do game clubs, which, in Europe, I think, especially historically, has been more the case where you go to the club to play. We don't have that so much here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought gaming stores and gaming clubs were synonymous. I thought they were like basically the same thing.
We're pretty separate, except for maybe the independents. I mean, the Warhammer stores and such, they'll have areas to set up. Even stuff like Warlord, for World War II, they have a number of tables at their HQ. Same with Warhammer World. But as a community, we normally find, a leisure centre or scout huts or these, the empty halls, essentially, school halls.
Yep.
And we pay a small amount, a premium to set up there for an evening, start at, 1800, finish at midnight and play through a game or two. And those guys do lay out what we call a tuck shop, so all the niff-naff and little bits of things that you want to snack on. Quite often you'll have a real food place nearby, so you'll head out there for a main meal, but you're still chipping away at the smaller stuff the whole time you're there.
Yeah, it's a nice setup. I like how it's done over in the UK. So, but yeah, we unfortunately we don't have that here.
We could.
We could.
Do that.
And what kills at least, I know what killed the local store by us, it finally went under a little while ago, is, they could sell some games, but again, most of your money is going to be made on concessions or whatever. Mm-hmm. But in order to go past a certain point, like you can sell like, whatever, a bag of food or whatever, like your usual like snack and like, 7-Eleven kind of stuff. But if you're going to sell anything hot up to and including coffee, I think you need some kind of a special license. at least in most cities and states, and that can get really expensive.
Yeah, because you got to have the food safety and stuff like that. Like Gigabyte's Cafe down in Georgia, they actually have a restaurant built into their store, and they sell alcohol and everything, but they have to have a food serving license.
So then you got to have a food license, then you got to have a liquor license, then you have to have your
sanitation,
county health inspection, then you have to have all the qualifications.
As long as it's prepackaged, you don't really have to have that. So, I mean, if you're doing like chips and candy bars, that kind of stuff, you don't need it.
Right, yeah, as long as it's a prepackaged food item. That's what we do at our gaming parlor for my VFW.
Yeah, so... But, it leads me to a couple things. Guys, Gaz mentioned Warhammer World. If you've never been there, you've got to go. Even if you're not a fan of Warhammer 40K, they have done that place right. Okay, the food is in Bugman's Cafe. The food's okay. We went there and we actually interviewed the guys from GW after UK Games Expo, and we hung out for a day, and we went through the museum and through Forge World store there, and then the GW store, because they're actually separate, even though they're the same company-ish. They're separate, right? And I found the most incredible model in Forge World that I want to buy. I still want to buy it, even though I don't play 40K. I have to have the model, and that is the Tau Manta. It's what, $1,300 piece of resin?
Yeah, something like that. It comes with about 60 infantry to sit in the back of it as well.
Thing is as big as my dining room table.
The audio cut out very briefly. How many hundreds?
1,300.
13. My first car cost $1,500.
Well, I mean, it's
a fancy car. Mine was $300.
It's about as big as my kitchen table. I mean, it's huge. It's amazing. But even Dawn, who has zero interest in Warhammer, when we went through the museum and saw all the dioramas and displays, you're like, well, that's really cool. And then, of course, if they do it like Disneyland, so when you come out, you're in the GW store. Right. And
it's a trap. It's a trap.
So you're like, oh, I want to buy this. I ended up buying Lord of the Rings stuff. That's, and Dawn's like, well, I would do fantasy, but of course, that was about the time they killed fantasy and made it Age of Sigmar. Because she likes elves, like me. So, we would have done elves. But, I mean, you do a right kind of display, you'll get people buying stuff that you probably had no intention of ever buying. Yep. Which leads me to the question, I'm going to pose it to each one of you, so you guys think about it, and I'd like to hear your answer. What game did you see or presented to you that you had no interest in prior and bought or picked up in some format and tried it or looked into it and were like, I'm never going to play this? Anyone would like to go
for me,
first?
That's quite easy. So I've gone on a Kickstarter called Super Fantasy Brawl. It's from Mythic Games. It's an arena-based game. It's a fantasy setting.
Yep.
And I've purely gone in because of the miniatures. They're really huge scale. They're very cartoony. Lots of surface area to work with. Lots of cloaks, weapons. It's something that will give me the opportunity to improve as a painter. And the sculpts are all stunning. And we already know that Mythic produce excellent miniatures for everything from Rightbusters to Mythic Battles Pantheon and, Joan of Arc and Solomon Kane. So we know I was more than happy that I was going to get the miniature quality I wanted. And, I have no real interest really in playing the game.
Yeah.
But I saw the minis.
Uh-oh. You there?
Oh, no. Gaz. Talk to me, Goose.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
In on it. I've got every part of it and the storage mechanisms to keep the models safe.
Yeah.
Me and one of the two lads may play it at some point, but that was not the reason I bought it. The shiny.
Got the shiny.
The rule of cool.
And it got me.
Right?
Yeah.
Marty or Jim?
Well, I'm the new guy, so I have the short story, and I have not gone super crazy all in on a bunch of stuff. So far, I've been pretty conservative in my purchases, and I like and play with everything I've bought thus far.
Okay, good.
So I have I don't know. I mean, don't laugh. My gaming collection really consists of about 6 games right now.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing to be laughed. I mean, that's actually smart because you're going to actually play your 6 games.
And 4 of them all use the same miniatures.
Yeah. See, there you go. I mean, that's smart game play collecting. You know.
Yeah.
Well, and I I don't have a huge budget for hobbying, so that's why I've done it that
that's
way.
smart. That's smart.
Now, I've been looking. And Gaz beat me to it. Blood and Plunder is on my wish list for sure.
Yeah.
That looks very interesting. Joe Veltry's Gunslinger Paradise just dropped, and
I'm going to have to look at that. I know nothing about that. I'm going to have to look at that one.
Do you remember the TV show Wild Wild West?
Yes.
All right, so the cover looks very much like the beginning of that. Remember how they had the little squares and little silhouettes?
Yeah.
The cover looks very much like that. It's got a pretty...
Now, is it real Western theme, or is it like a steampunk or fantasy type thing?
No, it's Western.
Okay.
And just go look at God's Eye Games.
We'll have to check it out.
They've got some Let's Plays and whatnot available now that it's out.
I think somebody sent us a link for it too. So
and he's already started expanding it. So you got more forces. There's more scenarios that they're doing like free PDF stuff for.
All right.
So that has got me pretty interested. Because like Contact Front, one of the games I already play. Mm-hmm. Although it's a modern miniatures game, is also a God's Eye Games product.
Yeah.
One of the other things, I don't know if we've really addressed this, because I'm the rule of cool. If I think the miniatures look cool, there's a pretty good chance I'll consider taking it for a test drive. The second part of that is I listen to a lot of other podcasts, and they interview the game designers and the miniature designers and all these people in the industry. If I like you as a person in that interview, I am much more likely to go check out and or purchase your product.
Yeah.
And like Joe Veltry, I've heard, a dozen interviews with him. And I'm like, I could go have a beer and play games with this dude. I would love to do that. I want, if he likes this game and he made it, I think that I would.
90% of
Mike Tunez from Blood and Plunder.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And we've had beers with him. So, 90% of the people that I know that have designed games that have come to market are awesome people. A lot of them are truly gamers at heart. There are a few people that were just businessmen that found a product and, they're just in it to make a buck.
It turns out there's not a lot of venture capital in this.
Depends on the company. If you, Asmodee, CMON used to be venture capital because they had a Chinese backer, and then Asmodee took over CMON now. And I knew that was coming because we reported on it several years ago at CMON Expo, but that's neither here nor there. But, so it is. I agree with you. If you get a lot of good people, if you find some kind of personal attachment listening to them or in an interview or watching them, you're more likely to invest your money into what they're, selling or, promoting. Yeah. So you haven't had one that you were like,
I haven't. I haven't got one where I'm like, nope, just not my cup of tea. So I mean, like I said, I have a very limited selection thus far, but I've been fortunate that I lean towards something that I think I'm really going to enjoy playing, as well as having the minis. Because there's if it's just about buying a cool mini, there's places I can do that without a rule set attached to them.
Right.
And I do that.
All right, Jim.
Are we talking about buyer's regret, or are we talking about like, oh, I have this in mind, but I'm going to buy these other minis for it?
No,
I'm buying the minis just for the minis.
You can. It's whatever you want. I mean, basically, the original thought of the question is somebody got you excited about a game that maybe you had no interest in buying, or they sparked your interest during the presentation or sales pitch, whatever you want to consider it. You bought it. You got it home, and you either read through the rule book or did a test play, and you're like, oh, maybe not so much. Oh, and it sits there.
That actually has never happened to me.
What?
I will say that, no, seriously. Now,
Jim likes all games.
No, I like all the games because I look at the game before I buy it.
He's a smart shopper.
Yeah, well, hey,
Well, I mean, a little. But I will say that I've bought tons of minis for games that I never play or even intended to play, and that would pretty much be anything Team Yankee. Battlefront has made a huge pile of money off of me, and they're going to continue to do so because their miniatures are awesome. But all the way back to that Team Yankee boot camp, I was like, these miniatures are great. I tried the game a couple times at the Team Yankee boot camp, and I was like, it's fun. You know, I'm with a ton of fun people, and I mean, you're at the on tabletop studio.
Yeah.
You got Justin on one shoulder, John on the other, and you're chucking dice. I mean, yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But when you take it home and you're trying to pitch it to your friends, it's like, why are these tanks all fender to fender? Why are we shooting at 200 meters? Why? You know what? That's cool. Now, as far as I could even expand it. Now, that said, I have like 50 vehicles, and God, I don't know how many troops I have for Team Yankee, and it's a game that I know that I'm probably never going to pick up. But the miniatures are awesome, and I like building and painting them, and I'm just building up my collection because fun. This goes to that. That marine project I did with Team Yankee miniatures, Brian's Leathernecks and so on. I was like, I'm going to build a 1991 Desert Storm Force. I just want a 1991 Desert Storm Force. Am I ever going to play this one tiny marine force that fought for 100 hours way back in 1991? Probably not, because the war lasted 100 hours. There's not a lot of replayability there. But that's not the point. I just want these miniatures, and they're going to be, they're going to sit on my shelf. And they're going to look cool. That could almost go to anything Battlefront, like all the way back to World War II. I've never been a huge fan of Flames of War. I've had a lot of fun with Flames of War. It's a fun game. But when I first got into miniatures wargaming, I was trying to attract people to my gaming table at this old gaming club we used to have. And to do so, we were playing, don't laugh, not Axis and Allies, the board game. Axis and Allies used to have a 15 millimeter miniatures game way back in the day. And by the time I got into it, it was kind of out of print, and the miniatures, the pre-paints, whatever, were like really kind of scarce on eBay or whatever. They were super cheap, but it was just whether or not you could find them or not. Yeah. So I started to kind of fill in my ranks with, what else is there on 15 mil? I didn't even know what 15 mil was in those days. I was like, that's in fact how I found On Tabletop, Beast of War in those days. Was looking for 15 millimeter Flames of War miniatures. And I stumbled on old Dave Shoulder and Warren playing with their flying saucers in Flames of War. So I started buying Flames of War miniatures for another game. Yeah. For this even simpler game than Flames of War was this other cheesy one. And then very shortly after that, I found Battle Group. And I was like, oh, they played it in 20, but they say it works for 15. It actually works better, I think, in 15 than 20. So yeah, then it was off to the races. I'm just going to buy like freaking almost everything Battlefront makes, and Battlefront makes a lot. And I don't even know. I'm over 1,000 vehicles. A lot of it from Flames of, or I should say, a lot of it from Battlefront. Yeah. And outside of boot camps, I've never really played Battlefront game like ever. It's always been for either Axis and Allies miniatures, which again I don't really play anymore. But that was almost like my gateway game. I would like trick people into playing Axis and Allies, and then when somebody really liked the Axis and Allies mini game, I'm like, well, then over here we have Panzer Leader. If you want to go to the next level, the first one's free. Come back, next week for some more. And yeah, I hooked a couple of Panzer Leader games, a couple Panzer Leader players that way. But anyway, that would be my answer. It was especially Team Yankee, but honestly, almost anything Battlefront. Yeah. And I know it sounds like I might be talking bad about Flames of War, the game. But how about we just say that I'm talking really great about their miniatures? And I have like 1,200 of their miniatures for a game, even though I don't even play the game. I'll still spend, dude, what is that, 1,200 times an average of 10? I mean, I've spent like almost $10,000 in miniatures with these people. Yeah. Their kids are going to college on me. By this point.
And let's be fair. I mean, you're not saying it's a bad rule set. It's just not your rule set. It's not what you are looking for in a game.
Their miniatures are so good. Yeah. And, they really are. It's in 15. Yeah. I also have a lot of PSC in there. I also have a lot of Old Glory. I have a lot of, different, but the biggest single share of that, probably at least 50% of that is Battlefront. Yeah. When I knew every time I click that buy now, but every time I click that, go to your cart button on the website, I was never going to play Flames of War or really even Team Yankee.
Yeah.
Didn't stop me from spending, easily a couple $1,000 with them for sure.
Have you got the A10s yet, Jim?
Nope.
Have you got the Apaches yet?
Yes.
You got no
I
A10s?
have an Apache from Rebel. I do not have the Apaches, only because my Flames of War Team Yankee stuff, that's one of the things I'm going to build in the future. Right now I have Bundeswehr, I have Russians, and I have U.S. Marines, none of which use A10s or AH-64s.
Yeah.
Harriers?
I'm sorry?
The Harriers.
The Harriers came in.
Those are hella on my list. Those are probably the next thing I'm going to buy, because I've got some Cobras that I'm putting in Marine colors. Again, for more of my Desert Storm Force. The Marines didn't use the Apache, and I'm going to have to get those Harriers.
Yeah.
Because Marines love those Harriers.
So let's see. For me, I have no games that I've never played or opened. None whatsoever. I have, let's be honest, I have a whole closet full of stuff.
Is that what you're calling the basement now, the closet?
No, I'm talking about the storage room upstairs by the hobby room.
Yeah, I'm talking about all the rest of them downstairs in the basement.
Let me just preference to say I am the worst when it comes to shiny syndrome. If you have a great presentation, I'm like, okay.
He's an addict.
I will buy it. I missed out on the Joan of Arc Kickstarter. So I went on eBay and bought this Kickstarter. I looked at the box and went, this looks cool. Never even took out the rule book and read it. It's just sitting there.
It does look really cool, though.
It does look cool. I backed Reich Busters. It's still in the plastic wrap. I have not even looked at it, really. So I have Test of Honor still in the... No, I think I actually looked at the minis, and I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot of parts, and I put it away. So, I mean, I hear it's a great game. I think I've come to the conclusion I'm more of a collector than a gamer in a lot of... I love rule books. I will buy rule books for just about anything. I have a huge stack of rule books that I don't even have minis for. I like collecting. There's a very few games that I love playing. Lord of the Rings. Gaz and I played Lord of the Rings. Gaz was kind enough to help me put my starter set together when we were over in Ireland last February, and a year ago February, and we got a quick game in of Lord of the Rings. That was when we had the Zulu weekend, the Rorke's Drift weekend. We did a lot of hobbying that weekend. That was a great weekend. And then Gaz came over, and there's still a whole bunch of Harry Potter miniatures that I have yet to put together for Dawn. That there's a thing of primed minis that Gaz primed a year ago.
They paint up nicely because I have them, and mine are painted. So I'm not.
But to answer my original question, is there a game that I got so excited about I bought and got it home and went, huh? Well, I've already mentioned Gollum Arcana. When the guy presented it to us and I filmed the demo for Beast of War at the time, OTT, for Gen Con when the year it came out, he sold me on that game. I mean, it was amazing, right? You have these miniatures that are come pre-painted. They have this quote-unquote smart board, and you have an app that helps you, do the combat and yada, yada, yada. And you have this pen that talks to the app so you know where you're moving. And I was like, amazing, right? So I was like, we're buying this. So we bought the starter set and we bought some expansions. I was going to buy the whole kit and caboodle, and Dawn's like, wait a minute, slow down there, slow your roll. And I got it home, and we were like, we made a video about all the stuff we got that year. I mean, we got a ton of stuff that year. And so we played it, and because we were going to film a Let's Play on it, right? We started playing this, and we're looking at each other going, what the hell? This is nothing like how he explained it. You could play the game without the miniatures. All you needed was the app. You didn't need the game. You could play it on the app, right? I was so disappointed. I really wanted to take it out and use my shotgun on it, but I was overruled. And so now it sits on a place of honor / I don't know what's the other word, disgrace, shame on the gaming shelf as a display piece. That game, I was so disappointed in that game. And that's nothing, it just wasn't what I thought it was. You know, and there's a lot of people who love it because, unfortunately, the forums just finally closed down about last year. The game, you know, unfortunately just didn't do well popularity-wise, but there's a lot of diehard people that really like the game, and more power to them. Wild West Exodus, like I said, I was so sold on that game because it was a Western. Got it home, and I'm like, I really don't like the steampunk aspect of it. So I have the miniatures. I painted some of them. They're sitting on the shelf. You know, there's a lot of games that you get so excited about, you bring them home, and then it's like, you know, this really isn't my cup of tea. So, but it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just wasn't my game.
Well, when you say there's a lot of games,
yeah.
As we said, I have like 7.
Yeah.
You have like 700. So when you say there's a lot of games you bring home, no, you've brought home a lot of games.
Well, we kind of slowed down the last year and a half because we didn't go to Gen Con or Adepticon.
Right. Which, oh man, Adepticon still breaks my heart.
Yeah. Who keeps trying to call me?
I see a white line.
Uh-oh. Looks like
Is that Bill?
looks like Jim dropped off.
Jim?
I'm back.
Oh,
We're both here.
Sorry.
We hear you.
People keep
We've
trying
been
to
here all the
interrupt
time.
our stream, so. All right.
Okay, cool.
So so you guys out there, comment and let us know what was your biggest surprise in not a great way. What game were you sold on that when you got it, you're like, oh, this is really not my cup of tea? So, you know, we can go from
Looking
there.
over my bookshelf now, I'm
Yeah?
I'm literally looking at it right now. I would say Twilight Struggle by GMT Games.
Yeah?
I heard great things about it. It looked amazing. I got it home. It still looks amazing. It's by GMT, so I know the company's
Yeah,
awesome.
I know the game,
haven't
yeah.
gotten around- Yeah, I just haven't tried it yet. I haven't gotten around to it. I opened it up and I saw like 1 million cards in there, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't actually, you know, it looks like a game that will be tough to solitaire, and I'm not going to get Jen to play. Twilight Struggle, that's for sure. So, yeah, it's been sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
I do want to try it one of these times, that's for sure. But no, I was super excited about it, bought it, got it home, put it at my shelf, and there it has sat for at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, there's some games out there. Twilight Struggle, Twilight Imperium is another one that everybody talks about playing.
Yeah.
You know, and now they just came out with a new expansion for it. I have yet to play that game. You know,
It's like a 3 or 4 hour game. Yeah.
Easily.
It's a big game.
Yeah. So, you know, that leads me to another quick question is, what game out there that you really want to play, but you just don't have enough people to play it? You know, because a lot of games, to be really good, need more than 1 or 2 people, you know, and you need the time to play them, you know?
That's the challenge.
Rise and Decline of the Third Reich.
That's like an all-weekend game.
Yeah, and it's to best play it, you need 6 players.
Yeah.
You can play it with 2, but it works best with 6.
Yeah, that's a lot of resources.
That's from the whole
between people and
6
time.
people. Yeah, so I have it. I played it back in the 80s when I was a teenager. I still have it, more for nostalgia than anything else. But I don't know if I'll ever play another game in my life.
You know what is another amazing war game that you need a lot of people to play? Risk. You need Risk. You have to have Risk. I'm kidding, Jim.
Is that true? No.
No. I'm kidding. That Risk is that's a good old family game. That's how I learned to play war games back when I was a little kid.
You know, Jim was talking about gateway games earlier. I think that's probably a gateway game.
I can remember my dad teaching us to play Risk when we were really little before we started playing Avalon Hill games. Once you got to the point where you could understand and master basic movement and allocation of troops in Risk, then it was time to play Tactics, right? And then move up.
Are you talking about Avalon Hill's Tactics?
Yeah.
I still have a complete set of that.
Do you? I need to get me another copy of that. That I do not have. So
1954 or whatever. That's like the birth of modern wargaming.
Yeah, it was what, red versus blue, right? So
or gray versus pink. Depending on how old your counters are.
But yeah, that was your entry into Avalon Hill Games, really, Tactics 2 or whatever they call it. So it wasn't based on a country; it was just tanks and this and that versus the other side, and you just battled it out, right? And you learned strategy.
It's literally red versus blue. There's blue capital and there's red capital.
Yep.
It's almost like the old green versus tan we used to play in the sandbox. There's always
your army
green
man
versus tan, little plastic army man, right?
Yep. And that's how that was my first miniatures war game, was Plastic Army Men.
Yeah,
we set it up. I had huge buckets full of that stuff, and we'd set it up on my grandparents' floor in the living room and have huge battles. And back then we had cat's eye marbles. I don't know if everybody knows what a cat's eye marble is, but it's a big marble with like the swirl in the middle.
Right.
And you would use that, and you would flick it across the battlefield, and whatever you knocked down is what you killed. So that's how we played war.
We used to do it with rubber bands.
So
we used to do it with air rifles.
Unfortunately, my grandparents lived in the city of Chicago, and air rifles were illegal. So
Jim busted out the artillery early.
But we were out. Obviously, we're talking about outdoors.
Yeah.
You'd set up you guys outdoors, and like you were allowed to stand wherever your forwardmost guy was, and because there was a maneuver element to it, because you had to take your shot standing over your little 2-inch army man or whatever. So as far as like where you could see, and you actually had to hit this little 2-inch figure with your little air rifle.
Yeah.
Your little Red Ryder or whatever the hell, BB gun basically. Kind of stopped that because number one, we were damaging our plastic army men, and number two, we lost them out in the grass half the time. We couldn't find them again. Like I had a machine gun team out here somewhere. I'm like, where the hell? Then my dad would come out and mow the lawn, and that would be it.
And it'd curse you out because you're ruining his blades, and yeah, I remember those days.
So that the little green army men were also my foray into my first
explosives.
Conversions. Well, no, I was into explosives before that. Match head bombs for the win. But you talk about them getting damaged. I had a dude that I much like Jim, lost him in the lawn, got hit by a lawnmower, and he lost a leg.
Yeah.
So I made him a prosthetic leg.
Okay.
That was my first conversion ever, and I was like, I don't know, 10.
No, we used to just take firecrackers, put them between their legs, blow them up, pour gasoline on them, see what happens, that kind of stuff.
We used to put model rocket engines in
nice.
vehicles. Yeah.
Oh no. get a little green plastic cosmonaut going, walk into the neighbor's yard somewhere.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and close out the show. Any last thoughts, Gaz or Jim?
Oh, no.
No?
It's a big one.
All right.
No, it's been a good session.
Oh, you know what? We almost forgot. Contest.
Oh, yes, contest.
Way to go, Marty. You almost forgot to remind me.
Well, that's because I win, right?
No, you don't qualify.
BS.
So if you watched the general show on Thursday night, I made an announcement and I showed off a box. I showed the minis, kind of.
Sort of.
I have an extra set of the special edition minis from this year that would have been the convention minis.
Yep.
From Spectre Miniatures. One is Baba Yaga, and the other one, is it Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Okay, Santa Claus in combat outfit.
Yeah.
So, because I'm so nice and have an extra set, I'm going to give them away as a contest. So, here's how it's going to go. You're going to obviously have to listen to this entire show. Right?
You won't know.
Because you won't know. The key word is Gun Bunny Santa. Post the word Gun Bunny Santa in the comments on any of our forums, any of our platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Podbean, whatever, and we'll randomly draw somebody who knows the code word Gun Bunny Santa. And that lucky person will win the Baba Yaga and the Gun Totin' Santa. Cool? That is our contest. So I will make sure that people listen, because if you don't listen, don't have the code word, you are not going to win.
Speaking of that,
that would include YouTube and Discord as well, correct?
Yep, everyone.
Any of our platforms?
Yep.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on YouTube and Discord.
Perfect.
So in the news, if you will, Spectre's production is up and running, and they've been shipping.
I got my stuff.
I got mine. Our buddy Chris Wimmer got his. So I know everyone was bitching earlier about everything's sold out. I haven't got my stuff. Whatever, it's coming. They are delivering fast and furious.
Yep. And that leads me to the other idea. You know, we have that other starter set to give away.
We do.
The first edition of their starter set. And when we do the broadcast for either the transit game, or no, we'll do it in both. We'll do a transit game and in the actual miniatures game. We're going to use another code word. And we're not going to do it at the end, so you can skip through. Now that you know, we're going to play in it somewhere in the thing, and we're going to do it casual conversation. We'll come up with a code word, and you'll have to know the code word, and you'll have to post in the comments. And then we'll pick from those people who post the comments. And so the lucky winner will receive the starter set. Now, to be fair to other people, if you've won a prize in the last 60 days from us, you are not eligible to win another prize.
I haven't won a prize in the last 60 days.
You're part of the command team. You don't qualify.
Yes. He's desperate for that Baba Yaga.
I know. I want Baba and Santa.
Didn't you get Baba? You ordered it, didn't you?
No, I ordered the
I told you to order it.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
It was gone by the time I got to it.
Well,
that's the other thing about Spectre.
I know, man. That stuff goes fast.
So they put up a what did they call that? A covert pack.
Yeah, and I didn't even get a chance.
10 minutes, that thing.
Yeah, gone.
Like, this is
all right.
BS.
So there you go, guys. The code word today is
Gun Bunny Santa.
So make sure you post that in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Do we even still have a Twitter account? I don't think we do. I don't check it.
I'm not on Twitter.
And our Discord server. And I actually, at the general show, people were on the Discord server talking.
Yeah.
Blew my mind, because I'm never on the Discord server because I just can't figure out how to use it properly.
It's brand new. It's really expanding. But
yeah, good.
But it's brand new. Yeah, we may have like 30 people in there now. But it's starting out. Yeah.
Speaking of which, we are over 400 followers on our Facebook page now.
Woohoo! Oh, there you go. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we just hit 300. Beginning of June?
I was gonna say, so that's 100 in the last month and a half.
Yeah. So thank you guys. Make sure you're passing the word out there. We are really close to another number on YouTube. Yes, or I lost count, but our numbers are climbing. And thank you very much. And Podbean, we're well over 100 people now, I think. So I know it's a really small drop in the sea of podcasting, but for us, we appreciate it. We really do. So
we're excited to have all you people. Following along. Speaking of which, do we still have seats available for the?
We do. We still have a few available.
Massacre Gaming Weekend.
We do. Make sure you're checking that out. Tell your friends. Tell everybody. We still have a few seats. If you're local, we have a couple people that are local that are coming.
Awesome.
That we have a special price. I think it's $50 if you're local and don't need a hotel.
Yeah.
That just covers the. And you already talked to somebody on sponsorship, yeah?
Yeah. So Knuckle Duster.
Nice.
Miniatures is fairly local to us. They're down in Bloomington, about an hour and a half from here. Yeah, I invited Forrest up, and Forrest declined, pandemic and all.
Yep.
I said, that's cool. Thanks so much. But he said, that they would send us some stuff.
Nice.
I have feelers out with 7 or 8 other companies for miniatures, rule sets, paints, things like that. So we are going to have some prize support and perhaps even some table support.
Yeah, awesome. So, guys, make sure you get signed up for it. If you know somebody who is interested in wargaming, get them on board, too. We're going to have a lot of different things going on, and Jim has challenged me, or was it the other way around, to play World War 2.5, because, he said I wasn't ready for it. So we'll be having a game of that at some point during the weekend. And to be fair, they're coming in early. We have to talk about specifics, but I know Gaz is coming in early and spending time with us to get things set up. And hopefully Jim and Jen will come in early, and we'll get a game in, before we get everything crazy going. But, yeah, guys, there's still some seats left. We promise you a good time. It's hotel, gaming, and food all included in the price. You can find the link on our Facebook page, SITREP Podcast, or you can send us a message at SITREP Podcast. It's sitrep.podcast@gmail.com, and we can get you the info and tickets and all that good stuff.
And if you are a listener who wishes to attend and you have a favorite game that you want to run, if it falls into one of the genres, and we've got 5 or 6 of them that we are going to play, let us know. We're happy to let you run your favorite game if that's what you would like to do. You know, you feel like you got robbed out of it at your local convention and you'd like to, get your game on.
Yep.
We are more than happy. I know that we've had one listener that's attending already reach out about that.
Yep.
So, if there's somebody else out there that says, hey, I really like, my X, Y, and Z game, whatever it is, and you wanna bring your table or you wanna run a game and whatnot.
Yep.
Get signed up, get a hold of us so we can figure out what support we need to do to make sure that the table goes the way you think it's gonna go, and we'll make it happen.
There you go. All right, guys. So we're going to close out the show with that. So this is the SITREP podcast for Saturday, August 8th, 2020. So this show is actually recorded just before it's released. So what you're hearing is the most up-to-date information. I kind of like doing it right before we release it because it's not 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk about the command team. We'll have to talk about, if that's something we want to explore in the future of recording it right before we release it, because you get the most up-to-date information as you're listening. So for everybody here at the command team, we appreciate you listening. Make sure you subscribe to any of our channels and hit that like button and those notification buttons as well to make sure you get notified of all our new stuff. We have a Painting with Gaz, a Brew and View coming out this Tuesday, and then the general show again on Thursday night. And Jim, you've got live streaming tomorrow. So we are full house, busy. So here we go, guys. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you soon.
Gun Bunny Santa.
Gun Bunny Santa.